let's just start right off the bat with this. I saw Madam Web last night. And look, I got to be honest, my expectations were kind of low. Not based on anybody's perception of it, just based on the fact, I mean, Sony had only released one trailer for it. They weren't, going to open up the review embargo till the day of the release. So my expectations for this movie were kind of low. And I walked in there, though, with an open mind, as I always do, just kind of, hoping to see a pretty good movie at least or something decent, And look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This movie's ass. It's bad. It's so bad that nobody's trying here. It is so bad that I owe Argyle an apology. It is
that bad, huh?
so bad that I don't even know how it got greenlit. Like, if I was the head of a studio, I would have shut this thing down. I would have deemed this movie unreleasable. Got to be frank with you. This is terrible. Sydney Sweeney and Dakota Johnson turn in terrible performances in this movie. That's how bad this is. Two great actresses give the worst performances of their career. And I'm not blaming them, because if I was handed the dialogue they're handed in this movie, I wouldn't give a shit about it either. This is awful, awful stuff. And I gotta say, I am ridiculously disappointed in Sony, because it's one thing when you make a movie like Argyle where I walk out and I'm like, that was not good. Like, I'm surprised that was not good. But at least in that review, I can say I could see why on paper everybody wanted to sign on to it. This film feels like it's not even trying. There is nothing good about this movie. Nothing. Absolutely nothing is good about this. Adam Scott's all right. Nothing is good here. This is a piece of bullcrap that the studio put out. So, for I don't even know what reason, it's not going to make money. I'm telling you right now, it's not. Look, I'll be honest. I went with James last night, friend of the show, and he was like, you know what? I didn't mind watching it till about the end of the movie. She said it was a steaming mess, but he didn't mind watching it. So maybe there's hope. So for those of you who don't know, Madam Web is about Madam Web, and she pretty much has these premonitions, and she doesn't really know why, but it kind of happens after she almost drowns and her life gets saved. And then we have a story, and she kind of teams up with these three girls. Isabella Marced plays one, and Sydney Sweeney plays the other. And I gotta say, like, I really enjoyed a concept of having this sort of millennial with these sort of Gen Z, I don't want to say children, but young adults, I thought that was, on paper, that might have worked. But even that, they don't even know how to execute. Every decision in this movie that these characters make is dumb. These are the dumbest characters I've ever seen in a film. There's a scene in the trailer, so I'm not giving anything away, but you see the sort of new Spider-Man. I'll talk about him in a minute, too. Ezekiel, or whatever this guy's name is. I don't even care anymore.
It's Ezekiel, yeah.
He's in the diner, he's the villain, and I wanted him to just win and kill these girls off, because they were the worst characters I think I've ever seen on screen in a comic book film. And I'm not joking about that. Furthermore, it would have amped up the villain for me, because this guy, Tahar, I'm blanking on the actor's last name, is...
for who? For Ezekiel?
Yes, he plays Ezekiel, Tahar something, if you want to look
Tahar Rahim.
Tahar Rahim is awful in this movie. This is the worst performance I've ever seen of a villain in a comic book film. I should say. Maybe not ever, but in a comic book movie, it's got to be the worst villain performance I've ever seen. There's a part where I'm just going to say somebody gets hit by a car, and it's very clearly a dummy, and it took all of my might not to start busting out laughing so hard that other people couldn't hear the movie. But I held it in. I held it in when I saw that dummy fly up against the wall and flop around like an idiot. This is such an awful movie. I'm telling you, it is I don't know if I can call it the worst comic book movie I've ever seen. I really do have to think about that, but it's really bad. It's
I mean,
very bad.
I'll get back to you when I watch it. But as of right now, for me, I'd probably have to say that Morbius is.
This is maybe slightly better than Morbius.
I mean, it's got the same critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, but yeah, I'd have to see Madam Web for myself first.
And the only reason this is slightly better than Morbius is because Sydney Sweeney looks pretty good in her Spider-Woman suit.
See, and I'm not gonna lie to you, that's one of the only reasons why I want to go and watch this is because of her.
I will tell you this: if you are expecting any superhero action, you're going to be the most disappointed customer in the entire world. There is none in this movie. The trailers are highly mismarketed. I mean, they're mismarketing this thing.
I was gonna say they make it seem like there's action in this thing, but
there's slight action, but it's a repetitive sort of game of Dakota Johnson has a premonition. She has to go save these people. She does it, and then she does that again. Premonition, go save these people. It's a repeated thing throughout the entire movie. And the
woman who directed this one, she only directed one other movie ever in her career.
There's a line at the end of this movie. It's right at the end. And I think I've heard it in about 5 other Transformers movies. I think 5 other Transformers movies ended the exact same way this one did. And it really does feel like every line in the movie was taken from a very bad script and copied and pasted into this script. And it feels like every line is like, oh, that sounded cool in that other movie. Let's bring it into this one. And it doesn't work. Or even their attempts at humor are terrible. Every single attempt at humor is awful. If you thought it was bad in the trailer, it's worse here. And let me tell you something else about the trailer. The action in the trailer is better than the action in the movie because they recut it better in the trailer than what's actually in the final product. That diner scene that looks cool, it don't look like that in the movie.
Yeah, crazy.
It looks bad in the movie.
That's crazy.
I don't understand how something like this gets done. I genuinely don't. I think that, again, this has to be, it's amongst the worst comic book movies out there. Again, Sydney Sweeney looked great in her outfit. Her Spider-Woman outfit. I hated the stupid white blouse with the skirt. I thought it looked horrible, and her hair looks like she's wearing a wig in those scenes. Oh, and she finally...
Honestly, if you want to look at Sydney Sweeney, just watch Anyone But You.
I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. There's better movies. I'm sure there's better movies where you can see Sydney Sweeney. But every time they would show glimpses, I'll just say glimpses of the spider people in this movie, I was just like, I want to watch that movie, not the one that's currently playing on screen. That's kind of where I was at this entire time. This movie, it's not only that, it's boring. This movie's boring, even though there are parts that are so bad they're laughable, and there are. You'll chuckle quite a bit, I bet. It's so freaking boring. It is so dull and lifeless, and the cinematography, forget it. It's not even existent. Like, maybe the diner scene looked all right. Some of the night shots look okay at times, but it's such an editing nightmare and mess that, again, I just would have deemed this thing unreleasable. Another thing I want to mention, we heard some rumors about them maybe cutting some time periods out of it, to try to, so this didn't have to be set anywhere specific. They maybe had references to a separate time period and they had to cut that out. Those were just rumors, but let me just tell you, having seen the movie, oh yeah, they did. That was definitely done. It's so evident that chunks of this thing were taken out throughout the entirety of it. It is so evident. And as far as we know, all the good scenes were the ones where they referenced that specific time period and they were taken out of the movie. You could so tell there's no reason to see this movie. And now the Sony and company are pretty much saying it's connected to nothing. And it's like, well, okay, so why did you reference this and that? Okay, whatever. It's fine. They want nothing to do with it. Dakota Johnson wants nothing to do with it. I want nothing to do with it. I'm going to give this movie a grade that I rarely give out because movies typically aren't this bad, but this movie gets a... Forget about That is my
That's
Madam Web review. Did you see Madam Web? Did you like it? Let me know in the comments below.